everybody, welcome back to story time. Today we're going to read The Boy Who Switched Off the Sun. Little Marcel didn't just like ice cream, he absolutely, completely loved the stuff. In fact, he loved it so much he had secret stockpiles hidden in every corner of his house. He liked nothing more than enjoying a big delicious scoop while sat on his favourite bench by the beach. But there was a problem, a very big problem: the sun. Its hot, sweltering rays always turned his delicious frozen treat into a dripping, mushy mess long before he could finish it. Marcel tried everything. He tried eating his ice cream so fast that it didn't have time to melt, but that only made big, sticky splodges fly everywhere. He ate it in the frosty cold, but that just gave him horrible brain freeze. And he even tried eating it in the dark of night, but that was far too scary. Then, from out of nowhere, he had an amazing idea. The sun was just like an enormous, dazzling light bulb dangling in the sky. "That's it," he shouted. "I'll just switch off the sun." But the sun was millions and millions of miles away. Marcel would need to build a super fast, solar-powered space rocket if he was ever going to travel that far. So after weeks of building, banging, drilling and clanging, he proudly added the finishing touch to his gleaming spacecraft. That night, Marcel was so excited he hardly slept a wink. Next morning, he leapt out of bed and ran down to prepare for launch. It was perfect rocket flying weather. "All systems are ready for liftoff," announced Marcel as the onboard computer began its countdown sequence. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, blast off! The powerful rocket blasted higher and higher, up through the clouds and out into space. Up amongst the stars, he could see the Earth disappearing into the distance. Marcel thought it looked amazing, just like a great big fluffy scoop of bubblegum and pistachio ice cream. By the time they finally reached the sun, planet Earth seemed like a tiny dot in space. Marcel could see the giant off switch and quickly set to work. Floating closer and closer, he could feel the powerful heat washing over him, and he wished he had some yummy ice cream to cool him down. Then he pushed and pushed with all his strength until one huge effort and a little help from his dog, kerlunk, Marcel switched off the sun. But as he set off for home, the sunlight faded fast and his solar-powered rocket began to run out of fuel, spiralling out of control. Luckily, Marcel managed to crash land safely back into his garden. That night, very tired from his long journey, Marcel had lovely dreams about enjoying his favourite treat by the beach without it melting away. But when Marcel awoke the next morning, all was not well. It was still very dark and scary and far too cold to eat ice cream. And much worse than that, terrible things began to happen all around the world. Flowers and forests dying, planets, animals in hiding, oceans in big freeze. Marcel realised he'd made the biggest mistake of all time. He must switch the sun back on without delay. But without the sun's energy, his solar-powered rocket just wouldn't work. He needed to think of a solution, and quickly. And there was one thing that always helped Marcel to think more clearly: strawberry cheesecake ice cream. As he tucked into a super-sized scoop the idea suddenly struck him. He would build a giant catapult to fire an enormous ball of ice cream straight at the sun's on switch. Marcel worked late into the night, building a scoop the size of a house. It was so utterly enormous, it used up his entire stockpile of ice cream, so he knew he would only have one shot at the sun. Finally, everything was ready. Crowds of people came from near and far, all desperately hoping that Marcel would be able to switch the sun back on. "Commence countdown," he yelled. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, fire! Everybody watched in wonder as the giant ball of deliciousness hurled towards the sun. "Oh no," shouted Marcel. The ice cream was starting to melt as it zoomed towards the sun's dying heat. As it got closer, more and more just melted away until all that remained was just a frozen scoop of Tutti Frutti. Everyone held their breath as the solid, icy chunk landed a direct hit at the sun's on switch.